did everybody think about that? Now please join me in welcoming our panelists for tonight. Actor Li Jun Li plays Grace Chow. Actor Yao plays Bo Chow. Producer Sev Ohanian. Executive producer Rebecca Cho. And WB production Legal Talin Haroutounian. Let's give everybody a round of applause for their achievement on this wonderful film, Sinners. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, sharing this beautiful film with us. I want to start with a question. We have a limited amount of time, a lot of questions to get through, so I'm going to start with a question for all of you. For the producers on this project, what was your initial reaction when you first learned that this was going to be Ryan's next project? And for the actors, what went through your mind when you first discovered you had landed this role?
I can start. Ryan had pitched me this project a very long time ago as always like his dream project that one day he would want to make, but it was never clear when he would make it. We had dinner once around Halloween time in 2023, Rebecca was there, and he was kind of pitching us this idea, like it was October, he's like, what if I get you guys a script December, maybe we can get it set up in February, maybe we can start shooting in April. And I was thinking, I think we were thinking he meant December a year from now. And we were like, man, to get a whole script in 1 year, that's a hard process, Ryan. And he's like, no, I mean December in 2 months. And we were like, okay, if you can do that. And he did. He sent us the first draft, like right around Christmas. It was insanely amazing. And we had a line producer within a week, we had a budget within 2 weeks, and we shot that movie within 4 months. It was insane. And every step of the way, Ryan was saying, I understand what we're trying to do is impossible. Let's just pretend it's not and see how far we get. And we come out in theaters in less than 2 weeks, which is nuts.
I mean, I share the same story. I sat at that dinner and I think I literally said like, 2026, good goal. And he said, no, 2025. And I think I might have dropped my cutlery at the time. We were sitting in the middle of catch steak. But yeah, I think we made the impossible possible. We're releasing less than a year from starting principal photography, so it's quite amazing to start out.
And Lili and Yao, what were your feelings and thoughts that ran through your mind when you found out you're in this film?
Hello. I didn't know much about it other than the fact I was working on a different project. Died again. Oh no, it died again.
A little finicky in these mics.
I auditioned for it. I literally had no information on it, and then a week later I got the phone call. And I didn't know what the script was about. I just knew that this woman had a very delicious deep Southern accent, and that it was a Ryan Coogler film, and I got the phone call and I said yes.
I'd say yeah, the same. I auditioned for it, and I think like 2 weeks later, my reps who are in the room were like, "How do you feel about going down to New Orleans and shooting with Ryan Coogler?" I was like, "What language are you speaking right now?" It was insane. I never imagined that I would ever be in the same sentence as Ryan Coogler one day. Yeah, it was a crazy thing.
Do you mind elaborating a little bit on that as a newcomer to Hollywood, working on a massive film like Sinners with Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan? What was that experience like for you personally?
I mean, like, real talk, like, I've never been surrounded by so much money in my life. I have been acting and studying acting for a long time. So, like, you know, the craft is always the craft, no matter what you do. And I'm pretty good at what I do, so I just get to do it surrounded by people who are also, like, killers in the game. And it was just amazing. it's just transcendent.
Lily, Sev had mentioned something in our conversation about this moment in the film when your character invites the vampires in. As I understand it, that scene evolved over the course of making the film, and Ryan had made the suggestion of having your character deliver that line from a place of strength rather than a place of weakness. And I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, how that evolution happened, how that line was adjusted and reworked in that moment where you're telling, everybody, like, let's get these vampires in. And if you could talk a little bit about, like, what that ultimately said about your character in the film.
Do you mean literally that one line or the scene?
Yeah, it's the sequence where you
Yeah,
kind of take charge and
sequence.
shift a little bit.
So that scene didn't really exist in the very first draft, and honestly, I asked Ryan for this scene because I didn't want people to hate me for opening up the doors. That's all. That's the only reason. You don't see Grace's daughter again after the initial introduction, and so I felt like the audience probably had forgotten or find it more difficult to empathize with what she's going through. And so I just felt like Grace needed that one extra beat, that one extra scene, that moment where it really captures her turning point, where we really see that this is her decision not to just wait until the sun comes up, but that this is her decision to fight instead of, I guess, give up and surrender. And then because Ryan is such an amazingly collaborative, kind soul, he listened and he wrote that last scene in for me.
Sev, I'm always looking for Armenian names in the credits of movies, and I spotted a couple in this one. Namely your wife and your partner, Natalie Kasabian, who has a special thanks credit right next to none other than Christopher Nolan. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, shout out Natalie Kasabian. Everything's here. It's funny, fun fact, I think Natalie Kasabian is the person who's seen this movie more than anyone in the world who did not get paid to see this movie. I think there was one weekend where Ryan asked her to watch 3 cuts of it to just give her notes, and so we had to, of course, give her the shout out, but yeah.
Just going off that, Sev, doesn't have any overt Armenian references, but in our conversation together, you had mentioned that when you first read the script, the last line of the film resonated with you, and you had conversations about Ryan, about that line, and how it reminded you of the struggles of Armenians, how we tend to find joy despite our history. And I was wondering if you could elaborate and share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, when I first read the script, that last line, for those of you who caught it after the credits, of Vampire Stack saying, for a few hours we were free, that really, really resonated for me. And I can't relate to being, from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and like, that's not my past, my history. But as an Armenian, like, I understand what it's like to be subjugated and ostracized and face all sorts of oppression at times. So the idea of a group of people coming together to just enjoy life, and I like to think that the people that enjoy the most of life, that dance the hardest, that eat the most, that drink the most, that have the most fun, are not people who do it in spite of bad things in the past, but rather because of that. I think it makes you want to enjoy life even all that much more. And that middle sequence where he's making music and art and we're seeing his ancestors, I mean, that sequence was everything to me. I mean, I actually tried really hard to get Ryan to put a Robbie's dancer in there somewhere, but he has no vision, so yeah.
I would have loved to see that. Rebecca, you serve as the head of film at Proximity Media. You're an executive producer on this film. I'm wondering if you can share, how involved were you in the casting process, and if you could share a little bit about the breakout star of the film, Miles Caton.
Sure. I think all of us producers were very involved in the casting process in this because of how tight the timeline for making this movie was. We actually started looking for our Miles or Sammy before we even had a script. Ryan wrote up a one-pager of who this character was, and we worked with an incredible casting director, Francine Maisler, a legendary casting director, and started a global search, and we watched tape after tape after tape after tape for weeks and weeks on end. Ryan knew very early on that finding the right Sammy was going to be the make or break of this movie and making it within our timeline. And Miles' first tape, the minute he started singing, we all just knew instinctively this was our Sammy. So it's exciting to see Miles get his flowers. And yeah.
Talin, I'm very interested in your perspective here because you bring such a new perspective into the conversation. We all know it takes a village to produce a film, and I'm wondering, what role does the production attorney play, and when do attorneys get involved in a film?
Of course. So, with the turnaround, like you guys said, it was tough getting this one started. Typically, we have one production attorney from Warner Brothers assigned to each project. Here we had two. It was me and my colleague, Catherine C. And the production attorneys get to work right from the get-go. So we'll do, during development, we acquire IP rights. You're involved in the process hiring writers, negotiating and drafting their agreements, and then during prep and production of the picture, we handle the director's agreement, the producer's agreements, the actor agreements, and at the same time, we also help guide the production with all of their production contracts. So things like, location agreements, we'll negotiate all of those, get everybody set up in Louisiana for this picture. So there's a lot going on, especially during that prep period, which we didn't really have a long time here. So it's a lot of work, equipment rental agreements, service agreements. There's a ton going on. It's a high volume. So that's what happens during production of the picture. And then, any sort of legal hurdles that they face, we're there to kind of help guide the production team through those. So that's kind of the main role we play during the production of the picture, and then we're there along the way, kind of even through release of the picture. So we help guide our marketing team. We give them the list of restrictions. We help answer any questions that may come up during the release process, and even sometimes after. We're kind of like the expert on the production attorney is the expert on the production the whole way through. So for Warner Brothers, any questions that come up, even years later, you're kind of the person that they come back to with those questions.
One of the things that we've been talking about is the quick turnaround time for this film. And so, Rebecca, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about maybe some of the challenges of making this film on set, on location. I mean, what we saw in 2 hours is a fun ride for all of us, but I'm sure on your end, there's quite a lot happening on set, on location, and I'm wondering if you could share some of the challenges you faced.
Absolutely. What challenge did we not face on this project? Partially due to the quick turnaround, but also because we shot in Louisiana from April to July, so the weather was a massive, massive challenge for us. I actually joke with Sev and Zinzi a lot that we were asked to go back through our camera roll to production and share any pictures behind the scenes. And I told them all of my pictures are screenshots of the weather and lightning strikes. We had a lot of rain, a lot of lightning, a lot of mud. All that exterior you see is actually on a location that is below sea level. So every time it rained, it got very, very muddy. We had lots of bugs, a lot of termite swarms that our lovely actors really powered through in those scenes. So yeah, all of it was a challenge, but we had such an incredible cast and crew who just rolled with the punches, and despite all the challenges, I think we only made this movie because we all came together behind Ryan's vision and was able to sort of move through all the legal hurdles, all the weather hurdles, all the different things that we were up against.
Hailee, you've been in a couple of big budget period films, Sinners and Babylon, which I personally love and love you in. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you choose roles and what sort of things you take into consideration when you're reading through a script and deciding on projects.
Well, I don't really do any movies that's below $90 million. Of course, I think this isn't the first time we hear from any actor. We want to play roles that challenge us. We want to play different roles. I always intend to play roles that are versatile and colorful. I want to keep my resume colorful. I want to play things that challenge me, keeps me on my toes, etc., things that people usually say. But also, I really make it a point to not play to the stereotypes. And if I am going to play a role that is racially specific, then I would hope that it will educate and elevate Yeah.
And yeah, I'm curious about your character in the film, and if you could talk about Beau's friendship with Smoke in this film. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about motivation here and working with the twins on building their business. If you could talk a little bit about that dynamic that he has with them sort of setting up their business, and where his sort of character is coming from. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're childhood friends. So basically, you know, what they want to do, I want to do. And Grace also grew up with us, but, you know, Grace is more conscientious, I suppose, and has a little bit more of the superego thing going on. And I'd say Beau is way more id and way more like fun-loving and just, you know, down to roll with the punches. I think, you know, as soon as he sees Smoke come through the door, it's kind of like, you know, what are we going to get into this time? And so I just kind of played it from that perspective, you know. I didn't think of it as anything, you know. Beau has no. One of my favorite parts about being in this film is that Beau has no idea what's going to happen later. He just thinks that he's about to have a good time with his friends, and so as an actor, that's like the easiest thing you can possibly play ever. Just in period clothes and then driving a crazy ass car.
In the spirit of tonight, actually, we should shout out a couple of other crew members who are, I think, here, who are part of our communities. Wei Wing Lau was my assistant on the movie. He's I think we have Ian Tan maybe also here, Rebecca's assistant, and then there's a special guest who really helped Lily and Yao quite a bit as a historical consultant for us. Dolly Lee is here. Dolly was our Mississippi Delta Chinese consultant. You're here, Dolly. You're here. Hey, thank you, Dolly.
Amazing. So we're going to wrap up the conversation, but I do want to take a moment to highlight, you know, for Sitters First collaboration between Black and Asian creatives. Our partner, Old House, have long championed API and multicultural diaspora, both in front of the camera, behind the camera. And I also want to commend this film for, you know, cross-cultural promotion. There's obviously key creative Armenians in these roles, Talin and Sev yourself, along with other members of the crew. And so I'd love to hear from all of you, from the message of the film to the striking visuals to its richly drawn characters. What do each of you hope audiences take away from this film long after they've left this theater? And I'd love to also hear, you know, what do you hope to see from our communities in the future?
I mean, for me, honestly, I just want people to have a really good time in the theater. Like, I think we made this movie, every one of us and all of our collaborators, to be an incredible 2 hours. I mean, you guys hopefully experienced it tonight, laughing, crying, screaming, shouting, yelping, like, all of that was by design to give you guys this one hell of a night. And I think that stays with you if you have a really good movie-going experience, especially in IMAX, like you guys saw tonight.
I think for me, one of the really special things about this movie that has always been true is that it's about so many different things, but it really is about community and a group of people coming together to build this really special thing. And you know, however it ends, at the end of the night, they've still built this really special thing together, and it's a community that really is there for each other and supports each other. I think today that more than ever resonates, and I hope continues to resonate for everyone who sees the movie, no matter how you identify, what communities you identify with. And I hope that message just continues to grow. I think we need it.
I agree. I wanted to just add, it's a diverse community, but it's a community, and it, you know, and a diverse community enriches us. So I think, you know, for me, my 2 cents would be more original stories, original diverse stories like this is I think something that we all need.
What everyone said.
I think it's really easy to look for a moral in a movie because we're so structured to think of stories as instructive. But, you know, it's so rare to have a group of strangers come into a room and face in one direction and feel something all at the same time. And that's kind of the beauty of the movies and large performing art forms. I think just having a collective experience is something beautiful. And then if that's mirrored by something as perfectly and magically crafted as this movie is, like every time I watch, this is my second time watching it, every time I watch it, I'm just like, my whole body is experiencing something truly magical. You know, I think that's just, it just gets better and better and better and better.
Beautifully said. Let's give all of our panelists another round. Dinners is in theaters in April 18th. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us.
Hailee, come right behind.